Hello out there. We're on the air. Arnie's here too. Arn? Oh, he's unconscious. Okay, so this is the very first episode of a new podcast we're going to be doing. I'm completely shifting gears here because there's just too much going on. The live streams are going way too long. There's too much chat in there. There's too many pauses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing a daily, not daily. That's why I didn't call this the Daily Bitcoin Journey, but a couple times a week when I have the time, I'm going to do a podcast. So it's going to be audio only. I think I'm probably going to release the videos into our Living in the Future community, but a lot of people prefer audio anyway, so it's not going to be a huge selling feature for people. But anyways, the point of that is they're all going to be very similar to live, no edits. You're going to get to see Arnie in the background here sleeping. And there's going to be no back and forth. There's going to be no chat that we need to keep up with. There's going to be no distractions. Basically what I'm going to be doing here, the podcast is going to be called Project Potential or the Potential Project. I'm not sure yet. I have to figure out which one makes the most sense. I like Project Potential. And so it's going to tie in with our new fund that we're doing in terms of Bitcoiners, a Bitcoin only fund where we find 100 people. They contribute 1 million sats. And we, very similar to like a Berkshire Hathaway style, very long-term investing in businesses, in ventures, Bitcoin related, any business that's making money that we can convert into Bitcoin. Obviously, we're going to have to take in the opportunity cost of just holding on to the Bitcoin, but it's going to be fun. So we're going to have the venture fund and the network aspect of it. I think it's going to be very successful. I'm excited for it. And this podcast is going to be kind of based around that. It's going to be mostly Bitcoin, but it's also going to be talking about updates from that fund, things I'm looking at in the world in terms of opportunities, business ideas, the opportunity and potential for Bitcoin. And where the potential comes from is two things. The first thing is that if you think about potential energy, that's energy that's being stored somewhere that hasn't been used yet. And that's very similar to what we're doing with the Bitcoin Investment Club, is we're storing our energy and our time and our purchasing power in a battery called Bitcoin. So that's the potential. I like the potential energy aspect that we're waiting to unleash it and unlock it on the world. But the other thing too is I think that Bitcoin is going to be a big unlock of people's potential. Fiat does a very good job of keeping people down, of stomping them, their throats on the ground. Whereas Bitcoin unlocks potential that we've never had before in our lifetime. And it's truly incredible. I talk about this on my show all the time. It's a big part of the channel. But I really want to direct some of that energy towards this podcast. So this is going to be a much easier listen. It's going to be available on Spotify. It's going to be available on Fountain. And I hope this gets more traction because understandably, I wouldn't want to listen to a 2-hour podcast where the host is just talking back and forth with the chat the whole time. So it's going to be a very focused, very direct, very concise podcast. So with that, it'll probably evolve. I'll probably add things to it. We'll probably get some sponsors eventually. We'll probably add some segments to it, but we're going to keep things very basic and just kind of let it grow and evolve organically to start. So I guess we'll touch on the mempool quickly. We'll give some stats. I want to give my biggest piece of news for the day. And then we'll get into the main topic. And the topics are going to be focused around the Daily Bitcoin Journal. That's going to be the inspiration for a lot of these podcasts. So I've been writing a short 3 to 4 minute blog every morning called the Daily Bitcoin Journal. It's on Substack. It's on Nostr. And I'm going to just talk through things because it's nice to have things on paper, get stuff written down. I love writing. But I'm going to be able to elaborate a little bit more in terms of what I'm talking about in the blog. Plus, I'm going to go back and look at some of the most successful videos or maybe underrated topics that I've talked about on the channel and just dive a little bit deeper or give my new take on it. So that's the plan. So today, November 27th, 2024, we are currently at the Bitcoin block height of 872,220. So since January the 3rd, 2009, the Genesis block, that's how many blocks have been mined. And with within each one of those blocks is just a bunch of transactions. That's all it is. Every 10 minutes, a new block is mined. A bunch of transactions are compiled into one block. And once it's on the blockchain, it's there forever. It's incredible. Truly incredible. So we've had 872,000 blocks. The difficulty adjustment, we are currently 39 blocks ahead of schedule. And it's looking like a 3.07% upwards adjustment as of now. And we've had 3 or 4 upwards adjustments in the last couple weeks. It's not based on time, it's based on blocks. Just like the halving, just like everything around Bitcoin, it's to do with the blocks and not any dates or times like that. So I really see a future where people are measuring time in the blockchain, in the time chain, more so than like Central Time, Eastern Time. I know it's a little bit harder, and this is maybe a subject for a separate day, but I just feel like the time itself, the seconds, the minutes, the hours is very fiat. You know, I'm meeting somebody here at exactly 8 o'clock. That's how little, that's how much we have to focus on time, because so much of our time is robbed from fiat. Whereas if you just say, you know, I'll meet you at the coffee shop at block height or at 875,000, of course it's going to take some time to get there. Well, people don't even know the conversion between sats and Bitcoin and dollars yet. But I do think that this could be the new global time. And then think about that. You know, I'll meet you there at this block height, and you might be 10 minutes early, you might be 10 minutes late, but in a Bitcoin world, it won't matter as much because our time isn't going to be as precious. And maybe that's not the way to put it, but I hope you can understand what I'm trying to say there, where in the fiat world, everybody's in such a rush. You have to do so much for so little that you have to pay attention to the seconds. Where in a world of abundance, you know, it's not that important. You got to be, you know, you're going to be somewhere 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early. So what? Enjoy it. You got time now. So I think that it's not so much that time will be less precious. There'll be just less bullshit, less things to do, less things to worry about. And that's the world that we're moving into. So today, let me see. What is okay, well, I'm not going to pause. I'm going to try to get away from that. So I actually don't have anything that we need to talk about today in terms of the news. We're going to get better at this. Trust me. Stick with me here. So today I want to talk about the Bitcoin piggy bank. That's the title of today's blog, and that's the title of today's show. So I got my blog here. I write it down every day, and I'm showing the camera here just in case you're listening to this. But I write it on one piece of paper, and when I run out of room at the bottom, then I just freestyle. I type it out after, and I freestyle the rest. So I'm going to have this in front of me. I'm going to be looking at this a little bit. I'm going to be paying attention to it, but I'm also going to expand on a few things as we go along here. So the Bitcoin piggy bank, and we talked about the potential project potential. We talked about 88 Sats project. Both of these are piggy banks. Both of these are a way to store our time, our energy, and our value in the best battery that's ever existed, which is Bitcoin. So you can do the same in your own life. You don't have to start a golf fund. You don't have to start an investment fund. You can just start funds of your own. And so Bitcoin is going to flip the entire legacy system on its head. That's what's happening here. Every single aspect of our society is going to be flipped on its head from Bitcoin. Slowly but surely. And one of the biggest changes, I believe, is how people and businesses will be saving money. How people look at it, how people save, the insurance stuff, the life insurance, the forced funds. Bitcoin's voluntary, and I think all of this will be voluntary as well. So instead of paying a monthly premium like we do now, that somebody else manages, that somebody else has access to, somebody else holds for you, that you might never get to access yourself. Think about the Canada Pension Plan. There's a lot of people who pay into that every single day, and they know full well that they'll probably never get to access that. That's robbery. That's literally a crime. And also that there's so much redundancy in the current funds and how they're managed and how fees are charged. There's just so much bullshit in the world And that's what Bitcoin is flipping on its head. So instead of that, you can just set up a Bitcoin fund or a Bitcoin piggy bank. And let me give some examples here. The first one is an emergency fund. So most people have about 3 to 6 months worth of savings, or they should. Most people don't, but they should have 3 to 6 months worth of savings just in case something happens. They get hurt, they get fired from their job. Who knows? Life is so unexpected and things go wrong all the time. So it's nice to have some sort of emergency fund that you don't have to stress out about. You don't have to add a bunch of stuff to your credit card. You can just have this fund in place. And I think that Bitcoin is the best way to store that fund. Second one is like health insurance. Think about the health insurance premiums that you pay. And just think for a second, like, think about somebody who's like 50 years old right now. And they've been paying into their health insurance fund for 30 years. Maybe they've used some of it. I feel like people just waste, though. That's the whole thing with the fiat world. There's just so much waste. It's like, oh, I have this amount of money left on my healthcare spending account, or I have to go to the dentist this year because I paid for it already. Just so much waste. And so imagine a world, and if you don't use it, you don't get it back. That's the thing. You can't convert it back to cash. But with Bitcoin, you can. So you have this health insurance fund with Bitcoin. You can buy what you need when you need it. And if you don't need it, then you can use it for something else. Doesn't that just make sense? Another one here is a children's future fund. And I was going to call this the education fund, but I really believe that universities and colleges are going to look a lot different in a couple decades from now. By the time your 2, 3, 4-year-old is ready for that, it's going to be a totally different world that we're living in. Just think about it. You can learn pretty much anything that you want to for free on YouTube right now, or a podcast. And if you want a little bit more interaction, a little bit more in depth, you can pay a little bit for that. But the days of like paying the government to babysit and indoctrinate kids are going away. Thank God. So I called this the Children's Future Fund because I don't think it has to be focused on education. I don't think you have to set aside money for college someday. I think it should be more focused to, maybe they start a business. Maybe they travel the world for a couple of years after they graduate, or whatever it looks like at the time. Or if they want to go to university, if they want to do a trade, that money's there. So a children's future fund. A house down payment fund. I really believe that anybody in the Gen Z right now, they're never going to be able to afford a house, ever. They're never going to get enough of a down payment to be able to afford a house if they're saving their money in fiat. But if you flip that to Bitcoin, an asset that actually stores your time and your energy and your value, plus increases over time based on the scarcity aspect of it, then it just makes more sense to use Bitcoin. So a house down payment fund. Another one here is a car replacement / repair fund. And I actually utilized this myself last year, 2024. I knew that I needed new tires. So I bought some Bitcoin. I put it in a fund, in a Sparrow wallet labeled tire fund. And then I probably waited a little bit too long, honestly, but I waited until the price went up. So it went from like $50,000 to $90,000. And so I actually, the price of my tires were about, half off, plus the sale that I bought them on. So that's what Bitcoin allows. It's for things that you don't need today, but you're going to need in the future. So a car replacement or a car repair fund is also a great idea. And also for the house, a home maintenance fund. So this is no secret. And a lot of people are not prepared for this. And it's a huge expense and a huge stress on their life when this time comes. But every 20, 25, 30 years, you have to replace the shingles on your roof. And that's a big expense. It's not like it's $5,000 anymore. Like, it is very expensive to do nowadays. So that you cannot avoid that. It's coming. There's nothing you can do to change that. All right. It's not like you can do a couple of shingles a month and all of a sudden you'll never have to do it again. Like, this is going to come. So what you can do is just throw like $5 into Bitcoin every month, or $10, whatever that looks like. And then in 25 years from now, you don't have to worry about it. It's already there. The money's already there for it. Think about the experience and the perspective and how much different that would be. people dread this for years. They know that they need a new roof. They know they don't have any money. They know they haven't saved a dime, and they know they're going to have to come up with this money. So not only is it a stress when they actually go to do it, but it's like they know it's coming for a couple of years. So that just eats on a person. So imagine if you just had something sitting there ready to go. Next one here is a wedding fund. And this is just another total flip of experience and perspective and everything. Like a wedding fund. Imagine going to your wedding. Imagine you spend the day, all your family's there, all your friends there, and you can just enjoy the day. You don't have to worry about how much money you put on the credit card to pay for this wedding, how much the DJ cost, how much the video photographer cost. It's already paid for. You've been paying for it slowly for the last 5 years, 10 years. You've been buying Bitcoin, putting it into your wedding fund. When the day comes, you can just enjoy it. And you can enjoy the honeymoon, and you can enjoy the first year together. Think about how much stress it puts on a couple and a relationship when they have to spend $20,000 now in a wedding is like the low end. $50,000, $100,000. They have to either tap into their parents' savings or they have to take on debt to pay for their wedding. Another one here, dental insurance fund. I think big dental is a problem. I think that people have just been so conditioned to say you got to go to the dentist a couple times a year to get your teeth cleaned. But it's okay because your health insurance pays for it. You have dental insurance. You pay into it every month. You might as well use it. So you set up a dental insurance fund when the time comes when you actually need a cleaning or you need a filling or you need a replacement. The money's there. That's another thing that creates so much stress in people's lives is dental bills, health bills, that kind of stuff. So if you already have everything in place, that just changes your whole experience with it in a very positive way. Pet emergency fund. That's what this is. I'm pointing at the QR code on the screen here, but that's what this is. That's Arnie's pet emergency fund. That's another one too. Like people get a dog. Some people buy, some people rescue. I would very much encourage people to rescue because there's a lot of dogs out there that need a home. But you go through this, you're helping the dog, especially if you're rescuing a dog and you're taking it on. You got to pay for its food. You got to pay for its initial, like its vaccines, it's to get fixed, neutered, spayed. And then all of a sudden, the dog gets sick or the dog breaks its leg or the dog or the cat does this. And all of a sudden you got to come up with $3,000 or $4,000 to pay for it. And that goes on the credit card bill for most people. I'd say for 98% of people, that just goes straight to the credit card bill. And it sits there and it accrues interest and it eats at that person. And of course they're going to do it for their pet, for their dog or cat or whatever it is. Of course they're going to do it. They need to get it done. It's not an option. But imagine if you had a Bitcoin fund for your dog. And when that comes, when it comes, you don't have to stress out about it. It's there. So that's a big one. And again, I pointed at the QR code, but if you're listening to this on Spotify Arnie's address, and we do a live show every day at 9 a.m. on YouTube, and the QR code's up there, and people send in zaps to Arnie all the time for his fund. And so if you want to send some in, the address is adopted son, SON 98 at walletofsatoshi.com. So that's his wallet. If you feel like donating to his pet emergency fund, but look after your own pet first. And if you're listening to this on Fountain, you can definitely, and I very much encourage you to send in a boost. If you learn anything, if you get any sort of value from the show, I have zero issues asking for sats for a boost. And I'm going to start working it into the show here as well. I'm going to put aside time for a segment where we read through the boosts. I love when people do that. And I love the fact that people can promote their business, that they can get across their message that they want to, whatever it is, for a very nominal amount. So any amount, there's no maximum or there's no minimum, definitely no maximum. But if you got something to say, if you want to contribute to the fund or promote your business or whatever you're working on, just send in a boost to the Fountain, and I'll be reading those on the show going forward. Funeral expense fund. It's another big one. People, I think, don't realize how much stress that puts on a family when you pass away and they got to pay for the funeral. So not only do they have to deal with mourning your loss, but they also have to come up with $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for a funeral. So if you just start sending like 50 sats every week into a funeral fund and you say, okay, kid or wife or whoever, this is my funeral fund. You can have the keys to it. If you spend it, I mean, then it's on you anyways. But I want you to pay for this. I want you to pay for my funeral with this Bitcoin fund. Think about how much that would change their life, their week after you pass away. It's going to be hard enough for them, but don't leave them with the burden of your debt and having to pay for the funeral. So those are the funds. And of course, you have to have a little bit of fun with it as well, right? So you set up a new fund for a new set of golf clubs. You don't need it today, but you want it. And so you put X amount into a Bitcoin fund, or you put an X away amount every month. And then when the purchasing power is great enough to buy a new set of golf clubs, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. You don't have to ask the wife or the husband or the whoever. And you just go buy a new set of golf clubs. You've earned it. And that's a totally different way of dealing with this than what we do currently, where people take on debt and then they have buyer's remorse, or they have to stress out about paying for it after. And it just changes everything. It changes entirely. Or a travel fund. This is a big one too. This is a very big one for people. Travel fund. Imagine a fund that you save for in Bitcoin versus fiat, how much more you can get from it. And again, a lot of people go into debt, traveling, taking their kids on a trip. $10,000 goes onto the credit card. New hot tub fund. Whatever it is. But the nice thing about this new strategy is that you can take the money whenever you want to, without any stress, without anybody's permission, without waiting on hold for 5 hours, wasting your day, wasting your time, and without any withdrawal fees. The nice thing about this is if nothing happens to Arnie, hopefully that's the case. But then we just have the Bitcoin, or we put it into the rescue dog fund, or whatever that is. It's not like we lose it to management fees and a whole bunch of redundancies to manage that money for somebody. It doesn't make any sense. So the hard part, so that's the nice things. You don't have to worry about any of that. The hard part, though, about this new strategy is that you actually have to do it. And I think most people are totally okay with pissing away money for the convenience. Pissing away money on management fees just so they don't have to do anything, and they're forced to do it. It's very convenient. People are like, well, if I didn't pay my health insurance, or if I didn't have my retirement fund, I just wouldn't do it. Well, you know what? Bitcoin is all about taking personal responsibility for yourself, for your family, and for your finances. Right? So not everybody's going to do this, for sure. But that's the hard part about this, is you actually have to do it. And so most will choose the easy route. Most will do that. But the ones who choose the hard path instead will be rewarded 10, 100, 1,000 times over in the future. And so it's easy to talk about this. It's easy to come up with all these different funds and strategies. And I think I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you the best way to do it. So what I would suggest, and this is what I do in my own life, so this is coming from experience, not hypothetical, but you can set up different funds in, let's say, Bitcoin Well. So I'm going to use two different things here. I'm going to use Bitcoin Well because they offer this service. If you're in Canada, if you're in the US, and I'm going to use Coinos. So you either go to your account or you create a new account, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes here for my link. It's very, very simple, but it's bitcoinwell.com/Jor, Jor. And you can sign up using that link. You get 5 free tosses into the Bitcoin wishing well, which is a minimum of 2,500 sats, maximum of 5 million sats. And so you get set up on Bitcoin Well. You go to recurring buy, and you can set up as many of these as you want to. So let's say you have, let's use the wedding fund. You've been dating somebody for a little while now. You're probably going to get married in the next couple of years. You set up an automatic recurring buy for Bitcoin, let's say $20 a week into your wedding fund. So you set up you go into your online banking, you add Bitcoin Well as a payee. They give you the information, the company name, the account number. You put that in there, you set up $20 a week. And then, just so you don't have to worry about all the UTXOs that come from this, you don't want to be sending a whole bunch of small amounts of Bitcoin to your wallet. You set up a new Lightning address. So you go to Coinos, you say your wedding at coinos.io. You don't have to share it with anybody. Nobody else needs to know you have that address, but you link that to your Bitcoin Well account. And so that specific recurring buy, you add that to your wedding fund. And then you do the same for your children's fund. So you go in there again, you set up a recurring buy. Maybe this one's once a month. You put $15 into there for your children's future fund. Then you go to Coinos, you set up a new wallet, a different Lightning wallet, and it's called Your Children. You don't want to be a weirdo or a pedophile. You don't want to be accused of being a pedophile. So maybe you use Children's Future at coinos.io. So you set up the recurring buy, you set up the Coinos address, and you do it. You don't have to think about it. People are always concerned with the convenience and being forced to do it. Well, this is the best way to do it. You take some time. Maybe you spend an afternoon one Sunday while you're watching the NFL or whatever you're doing, and you just set up a few different funds. You don't have to set up 15 tomorrow, but start with 2 or 3, the 2 or 3 most important ones to you. And then if it's working, if it works well, everything's smooth, you set up another one and you just go down that road. So it makes sense. And then when the balance in each of these, and then you kind of keep track of you have to be very careful with the passwords, the login information. You got to do a very good job of keeping it together. So I would suggest using like Evernote or what is it? I was going to say NVIDIA, but that's not it. Obsidian? Hold on. Again, there are no edits in the show, so there might be a couple breaks, but I think it's good. This podcast is going to flow much better than listening to the show. So it is called Obsidian. So you track it in there, or like a 1Password or Bitward and whatever it is. Just keep all your different accounts, all your different logins, all your different passwords together. And then let's say your children's future fund gets up to 150,000 sats. So you don't pay any fees on moving that from Bitcoin Well to Coinos, 0 fees. And let's say the balance gets up to 150,000 sats. That's when you move it to your cold storage. And you have a brand new cold storage Sparrow wallet, and you have to pay attention to the labels here. This is important. So you create a label, you receive it, and that's how you track everything in Sparrow. Use Sparrow for managing your funds, your UTXOs, and everything. Sparrow Wallet is by far the best option for that, for desktop. So that's what you do. And then every time it gets up to say 100,000 sats or 150, 200,000, whatever your threshold is, that's when you move it to your cold storage. So yes, there's a little bit more work involved, but again, the dividends that are going to be flowing to you from doing this, the less stress, it just flips everything that we've ever known and how we've always done things, completely flips it on its head. So that's it. That's how we're going to end the show today. And I encourage people, this is my ask for today. So number one, if you're in Canada, if you're in the US, make sure to get a Bitcoin Well account. Start using that. That's who I use for my buys, my recurring buys. You can actually swap between on-chain and Lightning on there. So that's another thing about Bitcoin Well you could do. I didn't even consider that. But you get your Lightning wallet built up to, let's say, 150,000 sats. You use the swap feature on Bitcoin Well. You send the Lightning from your Lightning wallet to your destination address that you put into Bitcoin Well. 0%. 0% fee on that. So you don't pay any fees on sending it to your Lightning wallet. You don't create a whole bunch of UTXOs. And when you have a sizable amount of Bitcoin that you want to move, you actually don't have to pay any fees on that either. So, I mean, this stuff matters. You have to pay attention to this stuff. And so that's my actionable items for today. I'm going to try to do that for every podcast, but the actionable item for today is get a Bitcoin Well account if you're in Canada or the US. And if you're in a different country, Find somebody similar to that offers lightning withdrawals, recurring buys, free swaps. You might have a hard time doing it, but at least look around for it. And the second one is I want you to, if you listen to this, if you enjoy it or did enjoy it, just let me know. Let me know if there's any certain segments you want me to cover, if you want me to do a little bit of news, if there's any other ideas that you like from the Bitcoin journey that you want to see in the podcast, let me know, because this is for you. This is for Bitcoiners out there. This isn't for me. So I want to hear what you have to say. And so I think you can leave a comment in Spotify. You can shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the show notes here in the description, my website, my NPub, or you can send a boost. That's obviously the best option for me. Send a boost, any amount, and just let me know what you think. And if you want me to keep doing it, I'm probably going to do it for a while and see where it goes. The show is always evolving, always changing. Has to. So once again, we do a show on YouTube every single morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. It's called The Daily Bitcoin Journey. The channel is called 88 Sats Radio. And I'm going to be doing these podcasts a couple times a week, probably most days, but I don't want to call it a daily thing because it is a little bit more work. But that's it. So Arnie's still here. Arnie's still sleeping. He wasn't too thrilled by the podcast today. But I think there's going to be a lot of people, if this finds its way out there. And maybe just to close things here, if you don't have any sats to spare, then at least just share this podcast to your social media. Just say, this is a different way of thinking about saving. I want you to listen to it. It's only half an hour long. Send it to your dad, send it to your brother, send it to your cousin, your wife, whoever. 30 minutes, they can do that. And I think that it's going to change their whole perspective on how people should be thinking about Bitcoin and the future of savings. So with that, I hope you have an amazing day today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And again, if you got any value from it, feel free to send some back. I would appreciate it. So have a great day, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.